Hi, I'm Ryan Busch, publisher of today's Campus magazine. I'm here today with David Johnson, who is the CEO of First Associates Loan Servicing. David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning, Ryan. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me.
We are at the 2012 APSCU convention, and one of the things that is on everyone's mind in the last couple of years is the financial services sector of higher education. And you bring, I think, a pretty fresh perspective into higher education right now, because you're not someone who's been focused solely on higher education. You're bringing outside innovation into the industry. So, can you tell us a little bit about what First Associates does?
Absolutely. We started as a multi-asset loan servicer. I mean, we service all types of asset classes. We've been around for about 25 years. And we only came into the student loan market about 4 years ago.
Okay.
And what we saw was really a gigantic dislocation in the way that the services were delivered. We were able to bring methodologies and technologies from other asset classes we were working on, say auto, boats, RVs, mortgages, into the student loan arena with great success. And as a result, now today we're the fastest growing loan servicer in the United States in the student arena.
I'm sure that for people who aren't highly involved in the financial services side of things, may not entirely understand how servicers work. So can you give us an understanding, what is the relationship servicers have with the higher education business people, and then also the consumer who's using the services?
Absolutely. So what we would refer to as clients are portfolio owners. Loans are originated so the students can pay their tuition, so they can have their living expenses, things like this. Then someone has to service those loans. While the students are in school, there's not a lot of activity. Someone has to track the students, make sure the relationship is maintained. As the students graduate and they go into a grace period, then is when we really step in. We do a lot of campaigning during the grace period around building a strong relationship with those student borrowers. Often in the way things were done in the traditional sense, students wouldn't hear from the servicer until the grace period had ended. And all of a sudden a bill would show up on their doorstep and they would be somewhat surprised often because they didn't know about this.
Okay. So I mean, that's a really good point too, because you're if you're a mortgage company and you're working with somebody who's just got a new mortgage, there's a month between when they sign those papers maybe and they are starting to go into servicing.
Absolutely.
In higher education, you could have 4 or 5 or 6 years between when someone starts the lending process, receiving funds, before they're really going into payment processing. So that's a huge gap of time to remember what it was that they started out with several years ago. Can you tell us a little bit about how that philosophy works for you?
Absolutely, and often in the case of medical students it could be longer, and the students have multiple loans. So they may remember some loans, they remember they have loans, but not necessarily your loan. And so it is really important to build a relationship with that borrower from the get-go. And it's the strength of that relationship that really dictates how well the portfolio will perform. It also dictates how satisfied these borrowers will be.
Okay.
So obviously, when they graduate, they're out in the real world. In the case of, say, medical students, they may be out in the real world for quite some time before it's time to begin the repayment process. But having a strong relationship, meaning you're in contact with them, you're providing some element of financial education, you're making sure that you touch base to see if there's customer service issues, that you resolve those, and that you actually know where they are, which may sound like a small issue, but actually has been quite a large issue in the way loans have been serviced.
So you're working with multiple lending products in many cases. You're kind of handling, coordinating all of those things for people and bringing it together in a single point for them to understand. That time period you mentioned, that long time period, how do you maintain a connect? What do you talk about with somebody while they're not paying you? What's the kind of relationship you build?
Well, let's start from the beginning. Say approximately a month before graduation, we'll make sure that we know where the student is, what his or her intentions are. We have strong connections to the schools, so we understand the basic situation. And then we maintain a flow of communication with that student, which starts out largely as financial education. It can be how to build a secure financial future. We have custom-built websites for schools where it may be branded with their name or our name. We can do either, where there's educational materials about how to handle your loan. And we'll be sending them a kind of series of these types of educational things. As repayment approaches, we try and send them more educational materials that are more related to how you actually make these payments.
Okay.
And so then when you get to the point where repayment starts, they're prepared. They understand what it means to have a strong financial understanding of where they are, and they also are prepared to actually pay you, because otherwise they don't even know where to send the check.
Right.
And as time progresses, if they're unable to pay, or if they simply won't pay, then obviously the rate of communication will pick up. And many of these borrowers who are, you would say, unwilling or unable to pay, it's really just a matter of working with them. It's a matter of coaching them through the process,
okay.
prioritizing their financials, helping them to get to a point where they can make some arrangement to build that financial future.
So it's a planning and solutions-oriented relationship. What do you need to know? How can you do this? And then when you have challenges, we can solve those challenges with you.
It's a very coaching-based relationship. Our entire borrower-centric strategy can be summed up in 2 words: be nice.
Be nice.
Be nice.
Okay, I think those are great 2 words to hear from financial services people. I don't think you guys get the best rap out there, but what I do hear more and more of is that kind of attitude of we've got to work with people, and I think people in the mortgage sector have been beat up quite a bit for not being as nice as maybe they could be, trying to find those solutions. So that's great. That's great to hear that that's a philosophy for you guys.
And it works well for us. We have had great success, not just with our clients who own the portfolios, but we've had great success with borrowers. We don't have the level of borrower complaints that many of our competitors have. We have borrowers who like us because we make their lives easier. And that's really having a strong relationship, making their lives easier, makes it a more effective model. It's very borrower-centric.
So we're at the APSU conference. How does what you're doing with borrowers and the Be Nice philosophy that you mentioned there, how does that translate into a solid relationship with the colleges and universities that might be here and meeting people and learning about these things?
For the colleges and universities, these borrowers are their customers.
Okay.
And they may be in school or they may be out of school, but really you want your customers always to have the best experience possible. You want them to speak positively about you while they're consuming your services and afterwards, and we help with that process. We often find when we convert portfolios over to our system from other competitors, we have many unhappy borrowers from those competitors' portfolios, and then we kind of use our strategy to make them happier and also to improve the performance of the portfolio. And really, when you have customers that are happy, it just makes your entire business not only more profitable, but it makes it just more pleasant.
Right. And I'm sure that's an issue, that you have an unhappy relationship with a borrower. They're not just going to think about the relationship between the loan and their payments, but they're going to think about their experience with the school and everything else that got them into that situation that made them feel that way. So being happy is going to generate a much more positive overall experience about their educational process.
Absolutely. We actually do quite a bit of market research into the relationships between borrowers and schools, payment methodologies and preferences as part of our ongoing kind of knowledge building. And we find there's a very, very large correlation between those borrowers who have a bad experience in the borrowing phase with their loan and the level of satisfaction with their education.
David, is there anything that we haven't just chatted about here in the couple minutes we've been talking that is absolutely essential for people to think about when they're looking at loan servicing or looking at your company in particular?
I think that there's so many companies out there that are stuck in the paradigm of 6 or 7 years ago and just don't realize that things can be much better, that there is a better way. Okay. And that really is the most important thing.
Great. David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Ryan.
I'm Ryan Busch, publisher of today's Campus Magazine. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.